Last week, with the season hanging in the balance and the noise of Happy Valley crashing down around them, the number 2 ranked Indiana Hoosiers authored one of the greatest drives in program history. Fernando Mendoza marched the offense 80 yards in the final minutes, threading precision throw after precision throw before firing a dart to Cooper in the back of the end zone, a dagger that silenced Penn State and kept Indiana's championship dream alive. Now that dream comes home to Memorial Stadium. Tonight on Hoosier Tailgate Show, we turn the page to Senior Day and to Wisconsin, a team built on blue-collar toughness and a front six that hits like a brick wall. Their defense is stingy, disciplined, and unforgiving, the kind of unit that earns every stat it posts. But the Hoosiers have stared down pressure before and prevailed. With a win Saturday at noon, Indiana can secure its place in the Big Ten championship. The stakes are massive. The stage is set. The lights are bright. And after last week's heroics, one thing is clear. This team is built for moments like this. This is Hoosier Tailgate, and it starts now.
And picked off! Up the sideline! Indiana! Asbury! Walking them down! Woo! IU! America! They got a football team now!
Last Saturday, the Indiana Hoosiers needed a heroic drive with the last minute and 30 left in that ball game. No timeouts, and Fernando Mendoza's precision passing to get them past the Penn State Nittany Lions at Penn State in a 27-24 thriller. But now we're back home for the last time in the 2025 season. It's Senior Day in Bloomington against the Wisconsin Badgers, who brings forth a stingy defense themselves after knocking off number 23 Washington last Saturday night in Madison in a snow-filled ball game that Wisconsin was able to pull out of their slump and get the victory, and a ton of injuries, and Luke Fickell finally got to taste the thrill of victory one more time, and he's bringing a confident Badgers team into Bloomington this Saturday, noon kickoff on BTN. Hello again, everybody. I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith, and welcome to the Hoosier Tailgate here on thehoosier.com. Appreciate you being here with me this evening, and also appreciate all year long being here twice a week on Mondays and Thursdays as we go through this Big Ten schedule. As like I said, it's Saturday, this noon kickoff in Memorial Stadium. It's Senior Day, and the last time you will see this Indiana Hoosier football team, for now, at home for the 2025 season. Appreciate if you're in the chat tonight. If you would like to ask questions or you have a comment, by all means, we want you to fully participate, and we'll try to get your questions answered as well as put up on the board so that we can all see what one is asking, and maybe one is giving an answer and such. But we encourage your participation, as do I, and appreciate those that have done it all year long. If this is your first time here with us at the Hoosier Tailgate, welcome. And I hope that you will enjoy it enough to come back again and again and again, even if you're a fan of another Big Ten team. We also want to put in the chat this evening already a link for ticket info for the Big Ten championship game in Lucas Oil Stadium there in December. It is via Ticketmaster. You can go there and secure your tickets, as well as other ticket outlets. But that is the main official outlet for the Big Ten championship, and Indiana still has some business to accomplish before that becomes a reality, and it starts Saturday against Wisconsin. Also, in my link bio on my Twitter page at Hoosier Tailgate, you'll find a link to many different affiliate links, but also the main one, the Fanatic store, the Hoosier Tailgate Fanatic store, where you can find all types of Indiana apparel for your pleasure, both football, basketball, both men's and women's. But if you go there, use that link, you will get some form of discount, as well as the tailgate does receive some form of commission. We roll that back into the show, and there's nothing better right now than to start your Christmas shopping, because it's November, baby, and we might as well start saying happy holidays, because before you know it, it will be Christmas in no time. But if you do that, we greatly appreciate that. And enough of the selling. Let's get on to the business at hand. This game Saturday for the Indiana Hoosiers, and it's going to be an interesting matchup because, like I said, Wisconsin comes in with a lot of confidence now that they were able to get that win, and it just wasn't a win; it was a win beating number 23 ranked Washington at home. They totally suffocated the Washington offense, and they had really, really hard time moving the football against this stingy Badger defense. And we'll talk a little bit about this Badger defense here in a few moments. But again, it's going to be a great time in Bloomington. The weather looks like it's going to be decent, although cloudy, but it looks to be in the middle 60s for Saturday's game there in Memorial Stadium. But also, we'll get over here to some of the topics of discussion. We talked about the main thing there. Noon kickoff on the BTN there in Bloomington for Senior Day. And again, the significance of what we talked about earlier is Indiana having a chance to secure a automatic bid there to the Big Ten championship with a win. It takes a win to get them there for sure. And that's what is at stake on Saturday in Bloomington. So a little bit of a bigger, I guess you could say, goal for this group of Hoosiers is getting to the Big Ten championship game, because that will be, and usually is, the number one goal of any team in a conference, is to get to your conference championship. And the Indiana Hoosiers have that opportunity in front of them Saturday. Wisconsin's story this season for Luke Fickell has been nothing but frustration and injuries. Billy Edwards Jr., who was the quarterback at Maryland last year, who faced the Indiana Hoosiers in Bloomington and had a pretty good year last year, was in the portal and transferred to Madison to be with Coach Fickell and the Badgers. And unfortunately for Billy, he got hurt early on in like the first game and has not returned since, and is mostly out for the season. They've even lost their second team quarterback. They are down to playing a redshirt, a true freshman and a redshirt senior portal transfer from Southern Illinois as their two quarterbacks right now. Carter Smith, the 6'3", 200-pound freshman, is going to get the start, it looks like, on Saturday. He is out of Florida, 6'3", 200, good-looking kid, but true freshman, but that's where they are. They will utilize and play both quarterbacks on Saturday, or at least that's what I would say in that respect. If Wisconsin has played a murder's row of a schedule. They've played Alabama on the road. They've played Ohio State. They've played Michigan. You can just go right down the schedule for Wisconsin this year. Probably the toughest schedule in all of college football. And there's no question about it. They've kind of, quote unquote, paid the price in that respect, because they have been nothing but banged up on both sides of the football, offense and defensively. Now, they have been getting some of their players back that have been out, and that has been a benefit as warranted in terms of what they were able to accomplish on Saturday against Washington. And in that respect, it's going to lead to my next kind of viewpoint here. And if you listen today on Jim Coyle's Indiana Sports Beat Radio, I talked at length about this concern that I have seen over the last few games against tough-minded defenses like Penn State's, Oregon's, Michigan State's, and Iowa's front seven. Indiana, who leads the Big Ten in rushing with over 200 and some odd, like 50 or 60 yards a game, I believe, something to that extent, but they are the number one rushing team in the Big Ten. Against those opponents, They're only averaging 113 yards. And that to me is a red alert because they are having some of the same issues and problems that they had a year ago when they went up against stout defensive lines that like to attack and penetrate against a offense that is predominantly a zone running team. And Indiana has only averaged 113 yards against those type of teams. Wisconsin comes in to Saturday's contest, only giving up 111 yards on the ground for the whole season on defense and only 22 points against. Their defense has played good enough to win quite a few ball games. It has not been the defense that has really been the handicap for this Wisconsin team. It's been offensively. So that, in my respect for Indiana, they are going to have to address these issues that I have seen with this run game against these type of teams, because they're not going to face any, slouch of defense moving forward. They're going to face in the Big Ten championship game, probably an Ohio State defense that is just as good, if not better, than our own defense. And also when you get into the college football playoffs, irregardless of what round you're in, you're going to face a top-tier defense, just like Indiana did against Notre Dame. And they had the same problems again last year against those two ball clubs in the second half of Michigan being able to run the ball. And that's the one thing in this time and year in the season, you have to be able to run the ball effectively, efficiently, to maintain and keep yourself in a position to control the ball game. When you cannot run the ball effectively, efficiently, getting 4 to 5 yards a pop on first and second down, your efficiency on third down is going to suffer, as it did last week against Penn State, where Indiana had their worst showing on third down conversions due to the fact they were lined up in third and long way too many times. That's why, for me, it's a concern. It's a red alert. It's whatever you want to call it. This is something that this Indiana offensive staff, I hope, is adjusting and learning from, because there's a couple things that I don't see them doing that I wish they would. I wish I would see them run some gap schemes, the power game, the counter game, and also against these type of teams that like to pin their ears back and come after you. Let's get some tailback screens going, because two of our running backs may be one of the two best receivers that we have in the backfield, and we've got to find ways to get them the ball in space. They're better in space rather than trying to run through somebody that's clogging up the middle because the interior line is getting beat. I understand the offensive line may be beaten up. I get that. I know they've lost Evans for a couple of weeks and probably will not be in this game this week. But at the end of the day, when you talk about depth, you got to have guys that are ready to step in and play. And like last week, Indiana was down to their third team guard against Penn State, a redshirt freshman who got his first collegiate start in Happy Valley. Did pretty well for his first start, but let's face facts. He's still a young pup going up against 5-star athletes, and Wisconsin will have their handful of 4 stars and 5 stars along that defensive front. So in that, I just want to make sure that that is a concern for me. We'll talk about it a little bit more as we get on with the night. But right now, I think that's something that Indiana is going to have to make sure of, that they're doing their best to address those issues. And you just can't say, well, we're beat up. Well, everybody's beat up. So you got to find a way. There's got to be an alternative way to do things if you can't run the same things, because the guys up front maybe cannot do what other guys can do because of injury. You're not able to. The worst thing against a zone running team like Indiana is penetration. Teams and defenses that like to get vertical as opposed to horizontal down the line of scrimmage. Penn State, all those teams that Indiana has had trouble against are those type of teams where they want to get penetration and bounce things and not let you get a downhill run. Now, I don't think you have to sit here and think, well, we'll just run around them, because that's not the answer either. You've got to buckle it up and go right at these type of teams, but you got to find ways to give yourself an advantage. Before I go on here, let's see if there's any questions that have popped up. I know some guys and gals have jumped in. Let's see here. Fake fans should rush the field, but then it would be weird. Yeah, that would be. Good evening, Michael. Glad to have you again with us as Danger Randy in today as well. Justin, glad to have you here too. And again, if you have a question or comment, by all means, we feel free to participate in the broadcast tonight and put that in the chat box and we'll talk about it. But those are some things that that I guess I would say has been my concern over the last few weeks from the things that I've watched via the tape that has stuck out to me. And when I looked at it further and started looking at it, it wasn't holding up to other games where they've had that, dominance at the line of scrimmage. Now, fortunately, Fernando's done very well. He's passed the ball in those situations, but last week against Penn State, if you take that last drive away, I mean, he doesn't have over 200 yards passing. So those are the things that Indiana, in my opinion, has got to make sure that they are addressing each and every week, especially against these defenses that they're facing now, especially this Wisconsin defense and potentially the Ohio State defense if they win and get to the Big Ten championship game, as well as the college football playoffs. But let's look at what we've got on tap for this week when it comes to the Big Ten schedule here. Friday night, you got Minnesota is at Oregon, 9:00 p.m. kickoff there on Fox. Oregon right now, 25.5 point favorite, 43.5 over and under. That will be an interesting ball game. Oregon coming off a very tough game against Iowa, and they get the Golden Gophers and Coach Flack coming to Eugene. And you can never put anything past Minnesota. They're always that team every year that seems to find a way to get a big win on the docket. Like this year, they already kind of handled Nebraska in Minneapolis on a Friday night. Does that play over again in Eugene? And Oregon's got a tough road to hoe here, just trying to make sure that they get themselves in the college football playoffs, because they still have USC left on the schedule, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, Indiana and Wisconsin. Indiana, 28.5 point favorite. That was a 31.5 line at the beginning of the week. It has come down some, as has the over and under at 44.5. When you look up next, you got Michigan at Northwestern on Fox, big noon kickoff there for the Wolverines. They are not completely out of the picture as of yet. As we all know, they've got Ohio State coming up. And again, that would make their year, and potentially a win against Ohio State, which they have at home this year, would probably get them into the college football playoffs potentially. They're a 12.5 point favorite over the Wildcats, who have had a pretty decent year to date. Maryland goes to Illinois. Illinois is 14.5 point favorite. Maryland and Coach Loxley, I don't know if things are looking great for Coach Loxley as a gentleman that may not be there at the end of the year. New AD, he's come out and said that we'll wait till the season's end to evaluate everything. And unfortunately, they've been on a 5-game losing streak, and that hasn't helped things. And now they got to go on the road and play a tough Illinois team up in Champaign-Urbana. Penn State gets to travel to Michigan State. Interesting game, 3:30 kickoff on CBS. Penn State, 7.5 point favorite over Sparty. That should be an interesting ball game. We'll see if Penn State can continue the momentum, even though it was a loss, into East Lansing for the game against Michigan State. Number 21, Iowa, heads out to play number 17, USC. 3:30 kickoff as well on BTN. 6.5 point favorite is USC. Both these teams are still vying for a potential spot in the college football playoffs, although it may be more of a long shot than it is a possibility. But USC still has Oregon on the schedule as well. So if they would finish strong, they could potentially get into a situation where they could get into the college football playoffs. Purdue heads to Washington to take on the Huskies. Washington right now, 16.5-point favorite, coming off that loss to Wisconsin. That will be an interesting ball game to see how the Huskies rebound against this Boilermaker team. While they haven't had the season that they would probably totally envision there in West Lafayette, you got to say that they are an improved club from where they were a year ago. That one's on FS1 at 7 p.m. And then the nightcap, UCLA heads to Ohio State for big time Saturday night on NBC. Ohio State Buckeyes, 31.5-point favorites. And that will be an interesting game to see if Ohio State can cover the spread. They just haven't really, I guess you would say, put the throttle down to a degree and put up a bunch of points on people. They've been very methodical with their approach to the season, partly because they want to have a fresh ball club and not have as many plays ran when it comes to the end of the season, so that they've, in some respects, have kind of quote unquote built in a bye essentially in terms of number of plays ran. In an article that I was able to read, I think a day or so ago, that was Ryan Day's philosophical approach and how they've handled this year in their methodical way of they've gone about winning. Now, there's been some criticism of the Big Ten, of course, as always, from the SEC. I put out a tweet this afternoon from a gentleman that writes for AI.com. He's basically called the Big Ten garbage and said that Vanderbilt would smoke Indiana. Well, it doesn't help the fact that Ohio State, in some respects, has really not been challenged at all this year, including Texas, and they really haven't played a tough ball game ever since Texas. They've kind of had their easy way through the schedule, and they will face their toughest games, of course, at the back end with Michigan, and then, of course, potentially in the Big Ten championship game. But UCLA gets their crack at them on NBC at 7:30 there in Columbus. College football poll came out on Tuesday night. And again, Indiana retained the number 2 spot. There has been some debate about Texas A&M and should they or shouldn't they be over Indiana at least, if not ahead of Ohio State, for the reasons I just stated about Ohio State's schedule and things of that magnitude. Indiana and Texas A&M have the strongest strength of record in the country. And Indiana, I do think, has more top 10 or top 25 wins than Texas A&M does, if I'm not mistaken. So there's been that debate there, but you can kind of see how that all is playing out. Indiana would need to hold serve for the better part of this week, and of course against Purdue, to remain in that top 4, as the committee has said that those that are playing in conference championship games, that it shouldn't be held against them that they're playing in it unless a lopsided victory would happen. But Indiana right now stays at number 2, Texas A&M number 3. As you can see, on and on. Notre Dame has moved up to number 9. That's kind of irked some of those in the SEC, as has Texas being at number 10. They've basically wiped away the loss to Ohio State. Ole Miss dropped a spot. They played the Citadel last week. So did that hurt them in the grand scheme of things? Because Georgia this week plays the Charlotte 49ers. And Texas A&M still has one of those cupcake games on their schedule as well, and as does other SEC schools. And so is that hurting them when it comes to the rankings? We'll see. But you kind of get a good look there at the top 25. Iowa, with that loss to Oregon, while it did push them backwards in the top 25. It did not drop them out of the top 25, whereas Washington, it did drop them out of the top 25, as you can see there. So, again, interesting dynamics there with some of the games this week. As always, the Big Ten is a conference that I do believe is as tough as it is, and you have to play the teams that are in front of you. Has it become watered down with the number of teams that are in the Big Ten? Perhaps. I think people could say that is a potential possibility, but so has the ACC, the SEC, and the Big 12 for that matter. I think both the Big Ten and SEC have maybe have too many. And that may hurt that concept of who you play, when you play them. But you can only play who's on your schedule, as Indiana has, as everyone else has as well. So we'll let the gentleman from Alabama Online just continue to cry a little bit more about what he thinks the Big Ten is or isn't. And we'll let him to think that Vandy would smoke Indiana. And I just don't see that happening, even though Vandy's a good football club. No question about it. When you look at this Wisconsin team tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about where they're at statistically. We'll talk about them as an offense, what they want to do or they like to do. Talk about this defense and their front seven and what makes them, so physical and strong in their defense, and a secondary that's probably one of the better ones in the Big Ten as well, although they are missing one of their top guys. So we'll talk a little bit about that, what this matchup means for Indiana's defense, especially going against an offense that has underperformed, where Indiana statistically against this offense is really way ahead of. And Wisconsin's offense has been very, very, I'd say not great as a whole. When you think about it, they're only averaging 12.6 points a game, if that gives you an idea of this Wisconsin offense when it comes down to it. So we'll talk about that as well. And then, of course, we'll get into the Coach Griff's video room as well, and talk and see what we can, come up with there in terms of some of the setting or some of the video and stuff that, what they like to do, and kind of break it down a little bit from that perspective as well. And we'll get into the situation and how Indiana wins. What are some things that I think this Indiana offense should try to do against this Wisconsin team to maintain control from the start and never give them any hope. But we'll talk about that more when we come back right here on the Hoosier Tailgate on thehoosier.com.
Huddle up, football fans. Tailgate season is here, and nobody gets. You ready for game day like Academy Sports and Outdoors? Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find everything you need, from grills to jerseys and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike and Under Armour, all at unbeatable prices every day. With 8 Academy stores across Indiana, including our Bloomington location, fun can't lose, and neither can you. Gear up today at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code ON3, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. 1. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code ON3. 2. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. 3. You will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code ON3 when you sign up. Make this college football season 1 for the history books. Make it legendary. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code ON3 and get your $1,500 first bet offer today. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, available in the U.S. Call 87.
Welcome back to Hoosier Tailgate here on thehoosier.com. Appreciate you being with us here this evening. I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith. And again, if you got questions or comments, suggestions, by all means, put them in the chat box. We'll talk about it. And we get ourselves ready to roll with this Wisconsin Badger team heading into Indiana this weekend to play against these Hoosiers. We're going to look at the statistical aspect of things and try to get some things lined up here better. Looking at this offense that Wisconsin has, and like I said, they are a offense that has really struggled this year, and it's all because of the quarterback position. They just have I've never seen a team have so many injuries at the quarterback position. They lose their starter, they lose their veteran backup. They're down to a freshman and a grad transfer from Southern Illinois who played sparingly in 2024, and he missed the major best part of the year basically due to an injury. So they're down to, like I said, Carter Smith, a freshman, and Hunter Simons, the redshirt senior who came from Southern Illinois. And those two have kind of shared the responsibility. But right now you can kind of see here where Indiana and this offense versus this Wisconsin offense, and you can see the differentials. Indiana, of course, averaging 44.5 points a game. That's second in the Big Ten, only behind USC. Indiana dropped again in their rushing average down to 231.9, even though that's still first in the Big Ten. And you can see Wisconsin is at 8th at 115 yards per game. Indiana, 4th in the passing offense, and Wisconsin, 18th. And then, of course, total offense, Indiana dropped below 500 for the first time of the year at 487. That led them to drop to number 2 behind USC. And Wisconsin, again, last in the Big Ten. When you look at third down conversions, I know it gets a little font there, so I'll try to get it to you. Indiana at 57%. Again, they drop under 60% for the year, but that is still good enough for first in the Big Ten. While Wisconsin's third down conversions is 32%, 18th in the Big Ten. Fourth down conversions, Indiana, again, an area that they have not been as good as they were a year ago. 47%, they're 14th in the Big Ten, where Wisconsin at 63% is at 8th in the Big Ten on fourth down conversions. So you can bet if they're within earshot of the yards to gain, you bet Wisconsin will roll the dice and go for it on Saturday. Red zone scores, Indiana 91% on the season now, 49 to 54, where Wisconsin at 76%. Indiana drops below 80% for red zone touchdowns now, 74% on the year, as Wisconsin's at 59%. Indiana had been doing quite well in the red zone when it came to touchdowns up until last week. Kind of hurt them some in that category. Points off of turnovers, Indiana, 82 points off of turnovers. That's been a huge bright spot again for this team. It was last year. It continues this year, and it made a difference on Saturday there in Happy Valley, where Wisconsin has only garnered 14 points off of turnovers. We'll look at the turnover ratio here in a second. You will also see why Wisconsin has struggled this year. Time of possession, Indiana, still one of the best in the Big Ten when it comes to time of possession. I believe they're first in the Big Ten. Looking at these defense and comparing and contrasting them, Indiana scoring defense at 12.1 a game is now in second behind the Buckeyes. Rush defense second as well at 83.7 yards a game, where Wisconsin is only giving up 22.3 points a game, which is 12th in the Big Ten. and 7th overall in rush defense at 111.3. Very good. Pass defense, Indiana is 6th in the Big Ten at 173.4. Wisconsin 12th at 220 yards a game, but both respectable numbers when you look at it. And Indiana at 257.1 is 4th overall in total defense now. Wisconsin 330.9 is 11th. And you can see that's not a big spread from 4th to 11th, but if you're a defense and you're only giving up 330 yards a game, that's pretty good. And, you know, Penn State defense about like that, and they got better. But again, Indiana defensively has been a juggernaut when it comes to the defensive side of the football. Third down conversions says a lot about it. They're second in defense on third down conversion, only giving up 27% on third downs. That is phenomenal. Where Wisconsin is 5th overall at 35%. Fourth down, Indiana, a little worse for wear there. They're 56%, which is 10th in the league. And Wisconsin's 5th overall at 50%. Indiana's 7th in red zone scores, but number 1 in red zone touchdowns. So there's a big difference between the scores and the touchdowns, and Indiana's done quite well keeping teams out of the end zone when it comes to the red zone. Sacks, Indiana has 31 sacks on the year, which is 2nd overall in the Big Ten. And Wisconsin at 21 sacks on the year. That puts them at 18th, but there's a big log jam of teams there with sacks that are all right there in it. Turnover margin says it all. Indiana's a plus 13 right now, 2nd in the nation in turnover margin, where Wisconsin is a -6. So that says a lot about the differential between a team that like Indiana that is at plus 13 on the year and a team like Wisconsin at a -6. Tells you all you need to know of their struggles and offensively how that's gone for them. That's a big, big reason why this Wisconsin team has struggled offensively and have lost a lot of ball games due to that fact of it all. When you look at this team and their top players this year, whoops, there we go. Like I said, the first one there, Carter Smith, the freshman, he's a 4-star out of Fort Myers, Florida. Now, he's only attempted 12 attempts thus far. So he's just breaking into this lineup, and they're using him along with this Hunter Smith kid. Big kids. This kid has a little bit more of the yardage because Simons, I'm sure. I got to spell things right. Hunter Simons, not Carter Smith, you dummy. At the quarterback position, he's the kid that transferred in from Southern Illinois. He's got 50% completion percentage, 485, but he's also thrown 5 interceptions this year. He only played in 5 games at Southern Illinois last year before it was the season-ending injury, and you can see in those 5 games he threw for 852 yards and 3 touchdowns. So he's a capable quarterback, but again, just now breaking into that lineup. He came in, I think about 3 weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken. And maybe sooner than that. I may be totally wrong there. With the number of quarterbacks that they've played this year and injuries they've had, it's been crazy. But those 2 kids you're going to see predominantly get the opportunity behind center. Running back, Gideon is a kid that's got 51 carries on the year, 232 yards, 3-star recruit. He had a monster career in high school where he had 2,250 yards and 33 TDs as a senior. He's averaging 4.4 yards. He's a physical back, kind of more like Black in that respect, about the same body type, and runs hard in that respect. And the other guy that has been splitting time with him is Dupree. He's a sophomore, played at Mount Carmel. 4-star recruit. He averages 3.7 a carry. but those two guys have been predominantly the two that have been their running backs this year. Their best receiver is Vinny Anthony. This kid's been around for a while. He's played in 35 games, and last year he was their leading receiver. This year, right now, 291 yards, 11.2, and 1 TD. He's the guy that they're going to go to when they want to go deep as well. He's the guy that they'll challenge your corners with and vertically, because he's got the speed to do it, and he's a decent sized kid. But he's played a lot of ball games. Now, one kid that's done real well for him this year is a tight end transfer from Missouri State. Started 33 games at Missouri State, came to Wisconsin this year. He's like their second leading receiver, and he's not even starting as a starter for them. He's kind of a backup, but they'll play two tight ends quite a bit. But he's averaging 12.2 a catch. That's 3 TDs on the year. So a big year for this kid. And Wisconsin is a kind of a tight end oriented offense in what they do. But this kid has come along really well. So offensively, when you look at this, good solid athletes there for them. Up front, they go 6'8", 6'5", 6'5", 6'6", 6'5" across the board. They have two redshirt freshmen playing on the right side, right guard and right tackle, a senior at center, a junior at left guard, and a grad student at left tackle. So it's your typical looking big boy Wisconsin boys offensive line. Wisconsin is the type of offensive line category. They get them right out of the backyard there, and they're always big and strong. And this line is no different for them there at Wisconsin right now and for this year. So pretty good offense, but they've struggled because they just don't have the efficiency that at the quarterback position, and they struggled running the ball in some respects. Although the first drive against Michigan, they ran it right down their throat. One of the leading defensemen is a true freshman, 3-star out of Wisconsin, set the Wisconsin tackling record. He's got 40 tackles on the year, 1 sacks, 3.5 TFLs. And he is a true freshman. And for that to happen at Wisconsin, he's pretty darn good, because Wisconsin is another school defensively that has had excellent linebackers over the years, just like Penn State. The other kid is this Daryl Peterson kid, 6'1", 260 edge player, 21 tackles on the year. He's got 6 TFLs, so he has a lot of disruption in the backfield and 1 sack. Another 4-star recruit, academic All Big Ten in 2023. So that is, him as in a nutshell. And then Sebastian Cheeks is another guy, kind of plays in behind him. He's a redshirt junior, 6'3", 241. He's got 3 sacks on the year and 5.5 TFLs. Last year, he had 3.5 sacks in 2024. So here's a kid that Indiana's going to have to be very aware of, especially in passing situations, and that's going to fall on the tackles, Benson and Carter Smith. Benson is a guy that I think is probably pretty banged up, quite honestly. And he's kind of toughing his way through it. But these two will be having to take on both these guys at one point or another during this ball game. And the Cheeks kid, even though he's 6'3", 241, he moves really well, got some speed. The other kid is this Mason Regier. Here's a kid that transferred in from Louisville. He had 6 TFLs and 5 sacks last year under Jeff Brom at Louisville. Transferred to Wisconsin as a grad transfer. 6'5", 248, 4.5 TFLs and 3.5 sacks. So you can see with those two guys that we talked about prior, this kid here is another one that is definitely somebody Indiana is going to have to be very aware of. Up in the front line, Barton, this kid, 3-year player, all academic Big Ten from 22 through 24. He is a load, 6'5", 330. And while he doesn't have a ton of sacks, this is a guy that's disruptive and likes to get vertical, and this is the guy that keeps their linebackers free, as is his backup, Parker Peterson, who's 6'4", 315 pounds. He came in from Tulane, where he had 4.5 TFLs and 2.5 sacks last year. But he kind of is another, 1-2 up the middle for them when it comes to their defensive front. And outside of those two, you also have Javier Suggs at 6'3", 300, who also is backed up by Brandon Lane, a 6'3", 302 grad student as well. So they've got a lot of upperclassmen, guys that have played a lot of games, whether it's at Wisconsin or other places, within their front seven. And that's what's made them so good as a defense this year. They've got experience. They've got guys that can force the issue, get vertical up the field, and cause problems. And that's what's made them a pretty darn good rush defense, only giving up 111 yards on the ground. In the secondary, their best cover guy is this Hallman kid. He's also a grad year guy. He's their best cover corner, had 7 interceptions in 2023. He has 2 already this year. Good size, 5'10", 190. But he is their best cover guy, and a guy that if Elijah Sarratt is back in the ball game this week, you can imagine this kid's probably going to be over him, or could be over Becker for that matter. But, those are the top guys there. And the other guy to be aware of in the secondary is Matt Jung. He's a 6'3", 220-pound redshirt junior free safety for them. He's a good, solid player. They lost their one big player at safety, Preston Zachman, who's injured, and he did not play last week. And he's been out. And so that is kind of what you're looking at of this defense when it comes to these guys that have been in and out of the lineup there defensively. But like I said, this defense has been a very good defense. They're very good against the run. They've been strong against the pass. They're very sound in what they do. They very seldom get out of place. And Indiana is going to have to find ways to move the football against this team effectively, or they're going to be banging their heads against the wall again if they don't, because this team is fairly capable of doing what Penn State did a week ago defensively. Now, offensively speaking versus Indiana's defense, when you look at the black and white of it, there's no question that Indiana's defense is better than Wisconsin's offense. But at the end of the day, again, this is a team that's highly confident getting that win last week, and an offense that maybe have taken a step forward with what they've got because of who they've been playing with. I pray not working Saturday, but don't get me wrong, the revenge is here, but technically the coach there got his ass. I'm not quite showing or understanding that, Steve, so you may have to clarify that for me. But I think I know what you're referencing, and that was the big Wisconsin win a few years ago at Indiana where they put 80 on Indiana. I think that was in 23, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember, but I think that's what you're referencing. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I do not want to misrepresent what you're trying to communicate there. But anyway, let's jump in over to the coach's video room here real quick and see if we can get to what we need to get to. This is their offense for the right now, this Wisconsin offense, and going to try to get this all pulled up here and put my puny face down there at the bottom so I don't get in anybody's things. This was against Michigan. And again, like I said, this team has played Alabama. They've played they've played Ohio State. They played against a good Washington defense last week. But this is a team that loves to run downhill, and their power counter run game is what they like to do. This is what they would prefer to do. You're going to see them in a set pretty similar to this because this is a downhill, come right at you type of deal. This was their first drive against Indiana about 2 weeks ago. And you can see there, this is a nice cut. This is kind of a counter. And you can see they're bottling up pretty good. And good blocking on the outside. And he gets about 5 or 6 yards there. The Simmons, that's not the Simmons kid at, yeah, maybe it is. He did play against Michigan. But you can see their front there, their defense, pretty big and strong. They're going to knock the P. Willie out of you, right? Watch the right guard and tackle on their combo block, pushing up for the backside linebacker. And so they're going to bottle you up in there as much as you can. Their offensive linemen have always been impressive in terms of their size and strength, but basically how well they run. They've always had linemen that just seem they can run really good. Again, here's the counterplay going right at Michigan. Well, that is the same counterplay, you dummy. Forgot to hit my button ahead there. Again, 2 tight ends in the game, going from a tight alignment set to get the defense set so it looks like a regular tight wing formation or almost an offset I formation, but then they move it to a true what we'd call 11 personnel look, even though they're in 12 personnel. And they want to get the ball in and out of the quarterback's hands. Michigan here is loading them up on a cross blitz. They don't get home. They give a pretty clean pocket. Quarterback steps and delivers, and they get a big first down when they need it. You can expect this is Indiana's defense for the most part when you look at it structurally. So here's that cross blitz where they like to bring the A-gap pressure and bring the backside backer over the top to confuse. And this is really good by the right guard and the running back. They're scanning back and does a pretty good job there. Again, Jeff Grimes is their offensive coordinator. He's been in the NFL. He's had a lot of college experience. Here they go from what looks to be a one-back set, but they got a true fullback in the game. And so they get in there and they get into an offset I. So you can expect power counter and some zone play here. Here's a inside zone concept where they look like they would be running to the left by where the offset is, but they run zone and it turns into like a ISO play because the fullback is looking to block the end man offline and he adjusts for this guy. They're bringing a quarter strike down here at the bottom because the back's offset this way. But they stuff it up pretty good and big time run, get chunks of yards. This is their first drive against Michigan. So they had Michigan reeling the first drive. Very good. See, Michigan's dead right now because if you look at that picture, you want to run here, right? If I'm a coordinator, I want to run here because they've got a full gap exposed because this guy is basically in the B gap and the backer is almost all the way in the A gap. So that's a good run look. And Wisconsin takes advantage of it and gets a big play or a big run out of it. So they're a team that wants to be physical. They want to jam it down your throat as much as possible, but they're going to show you different things. This right here is a combination of a speed sweep and what you would do is a shovel pass. So this is kind of an RPO where the quarterback is technically reading that guy in that space there. And if they get guys overflowing or gets too wide here, he'd pitch it underneath to this tight end that's coming around right there. But everybody's down, and so they do a speed sweep, and they got the best of both worlds and pick up a first down. So smart play call there. They've kind of protected themselves with how they run it. because of they give them a and/or situation. This is against the Buckeyes. Ohio State, that's kind of a zone pressure look. Playing cover one, man-to-man, man-free, but you're getting the end and tackle to drop out of here. But they still get the completion. Now, he comes up short in that respect. But they had some of their success against the Buckeyes, but pretty good protection here. I mean, they pick up the blitz. They've got they wad them up. Quarterback's got a good look, and he does a good job of adjusting off the zone blitz. 1st and 10, they go from a bunch, or what we call restricted, to a wide look. And again, drop back pass with pretty good pass pro. And they're just running a flood concept against this cover one look that turns in for Ohio State. And they're going to hit that guy right there where he's curling in there. So a good route to defeat that type of coverage. When you get that one high look, flood routes where you're flooding in a zone like Wisconsin does here is a smart thing to do because you're taking advantage of what the coverage is giving you, and flooding a zone with one high. That's the type of throws you can get. One more here of them. Let's see if it's a run. Here's kind of a counter lead. You got the guard and the backside tackle or tight end pulling, who's off the ball here. Kind of a wacky, unbalanced look, but the fullback's leading through. So they're trying to get a lot of bodies at the point of attack. Now, Caleb Downs, number 2, he's just a bitch of a player. That dude is so good. He's going to make a lot of money. But you can kind of see here what they want to do. Tough nose, point of attack, block back, block down. They got it pretty good there. And he's hitting it where he needs to hit the hole. It's just that Caleb Downs is filling in with where they're at there, and he makes the play. But they had what they wanted there, and they still got positive yardage on it. So it wasn't like they didn't have let's go over to their defense now and kind of jump on this for a little bit. But you can kind of see that their offense, they want to be a run team, get the ball out of the quarterback's hands on any type of drop back, and do some play action boot stuff as well that I wasn't able to show you there, but good hard play action team as well. Michigan really gets them on this play here because what happens is they're rocking their coverage. And what I mean by this, these guys are rotating because of the motion. He's coming down for this guy that's coming over the top. What happens is when this guy vacates here, these backers overrun, and this is the freshman, and they hit the seam in the backside A-gap. So this is what we call a wham play. They're not blocking it totally right because usually they don't double team the nose. Maybe they were because of the size of the guy, but they double team it. I'll show you the end zone by what I mean by wham. And Indiana ran this against UCLA, had success. Theoretically on wham, it's inside zone principles, but they're going to somehow take that guy and influence him up the field and bring this guy in here and basically crack him or trap him, however you want to look at it. That's a good play. And what happens, you'll see by what I mean by overrunning. See, he's overrunning because he's got deep third responsibilities. And the backer, he's gone because it widens him. And this guy's playing over the top. And there's nobody in this back outside A gap, and they rip it right there. So very good scheme and design there by Michigan on their run game to get, and that's what Indiana's got to do. They got to find ways to scheme some things up to get what they need at the point of attack. This is down there in the red zone or down in the goal line area. Michigan goes to an unbalance. They're messed up because this guy's playing over the top. This guy's not even an eligible receiver. they're really hurting in this side of the field. So if they would run something weak here, they probably walk in the end zone. And they don't, they almost do, but the guard doesn't win his block there on the one technique. Backside backer 0. He's out now. That 0 is out. He's not playing. He's hurt. As is 4, I think. But nice play there by those two. This is a short yardage situation, and this is what I wanted to show you as well, because this is the things that Indiana's having trouble with. I mean, there's a lot of bodies right there. I almost would take my chances out here with Donovan because he's a 6'5" dude, and this guy's 5'10". But they're going to go ahead and try to run what we would term as a wedge play, and Wisconsin just kicks their butt at the point of attack. And they stop them on a 4th down play. They went for it right here on 4th down, and it's a base defense for the better part up front, except they've brought, they brought more bodies into the equation, and there ain't no running there. So, Michigan had their fair share of problems. They will run their bear defense as displayed here. Going to play cover 1, man free. These guys are all man, so Indiana's going to decide. Now, this is where Indiana likes to run their RPO game, and when they get one high, they like to throw, the double slant concepts or do some other things with their wideouts. Michigan right here does a return motion to run the power play. This should be a really good play, and it ends up being, but this backer does a good job backside here. He doesn't get over the top of it, and he's there for the backside lane, and I'll show you what I mean. This backer right here is going to be the responsible of these two guys because they're double teaming that wide 3 to this backside backer. And what they are hoping with flow is that he's going to flow over the top to him. Well, he stays back door and makes the play because where the cut's going to be is right backside in that A gap. And it's all looking good right there, but it's all plugged and he does a good job. You can see the hole, but the number 0 does a good job of staying home and he defeats the play. All right, this is some against Oregon. Oregon did not have much success in the first half against them running the ball. As a matter of fact, they got a little bit junky with it all. Here, they cover them and sack them. Dante Moore should be throwing this out to the running back at a bare minimum or throwing it out of the bounds, but he holds it and they get a big sack on him. This is a 0-0 ball game all the way through the first half, if I'm not mistaken, up until the latter part of the quarter where Oregon scores later. Running a twist. Here's the buy off the edge. Number 15, we talked about him, Dupree. You see how quick he is. Boom, he's by that tackle. That's Carter Smith. He's going to have to be good because this cat can move. He got held and grabbed, and they finally threw it, but it was too late. Get a better look at his ability here coming off this edge, and that's what I mean. They're going to rush, run their zone pressure here, bringing that backer, dropping the end, but Dupree's coming off that edge, and if you're a step behind, he's going to beat you. Get one more shot here, then I'll tell you what I want. This is very good on their inside zone. They go wide set with the tight end backside. And they do a good job of bottling it up and getting up to the backer by the right guard there coming up, number 72, the front side backer. I mean, that's the center, I'm sorry. So again, they're spreading them out, which Indiana likes to do. And I wanted to see from this perspective, they're playing what I call quarters coverage up here, kind of a 2 safety. They're playing cover 2 down here. He's going to play half. So in this instance, Indiana would look at this. If they had an RPO on, they're giving it versus that look more times than not. So if they get 2 safeties high, he's predominantly giving it. When they go 1 safety high, that's when he's pulling it and throwing it because they're bringing an extra body into the box. Therefore, they're outnumbered, if that makes sense. Let's see here. I wanted to throw a couple. I can't remember. I think this is the one. This is against Ohio State. They did a lot of good things, and if I had more time, I'd show you their first drive where they script it. This is part of it. They had a lot of right calls here. They're running a quick screen into a blitz, and they've got everybody out there set up for it, and they do a great job of in space getting it down the field quickly. And then last one here. I think this is the throw that I wanted to show that this kid makes. So Wisconsin forces him to kind of bail out, but watch this throw. That's a touchdown. Are you kidding me? They're playing Tampa too. And they get him down the chute. That's crazy. That's a hell of a throw by that kid. And I think that's Jeremiah Smith. He steps around, does a good job there. Oh, that's the Tate kid. What a catch. So you can see what I mean there by that group of players that they're pretty darn good. But again, what I like to see Indiana do offensively, and I'm sorry I'm taking so much time here. Offensively, they got to be creative in their scheme. They've got to find ways to get downhill, whether it's doing that wham block here and there, whether it's putting the 2 backs in the backfield like they did last week where Black was the lead blocker. But they've also got to find some counter and power game if they can to help the offensive linemen out, especially against a team that likes to get up the field like Wisconsin likes to do. Penetrating teams hurt zone schemes. They just do. If you're fighting penetrators on a zone team, you're going to have problems because they're going to be 3 yards in the backfield because they're not honoring how you're blocking there. Outside zone may be the option against that, but I like to see them to have a little bit down the hill type of deal and get their RPO game back up and running because it's been non-existent for the better part of 2 weeks in some respects. And maybe that's because people have solved them and said, well, we can play tough with 6 in the box. We'll put 2 deep. We know we're going to give it because they're not going to throw it there. So maybe that's what they're doing. So, and when you got a defensive line that's strong in the front 4, and they can do that. They can do that in that respect. When we get back over here to some of these objectives this week, let's see here. Yep. Ugh. Get this. What I like to, let's see if I got my other ones here. Yep. Here we go. Indiana, like to see them against the rush, get 185 on the ground this week. They're giving up 111 on average. And I'd like to see Indiana come in there and get about 74 more yards on them, I mean 185. 275 through the air. They're giving up 220. Come back and get better at the winning the money downs, and that's because they're going to be more efficient on first and second. Again, keep their red zone efficiency up and score 30-plus points. Defensively, when you look at it, this was where Indiana should smother them. Wisconsin is only averaging 115 on the ground. Indiana's given up about 87 on the year on the ground. They need to hold them to 80 yards. Pass defense, hold them to 140, which is Wisconsin's average of 140. Wisconsin scoring about 12.8. I like to see Indiana hold them to 10. And if they can do that and do this, continue on winning the money down, and then the turnover battle, which is in their favor heavily, they should have a good day defensively. And then special teams wise, we haven't talked about this. Punt teams got to start being more aggressive. And they got to start trying to get some returns where they get averaging about 15 yards of a return if they can against this Wisconsin football team, especially against this offense that's struggling. They've got to get back to having an aggressive mentality. Set up a score with the kicking game. Again, 100% on the field goals and PATs, especially field goals under 35 yards. They've been fantastic this year in that regard. I think the field goal kicker for Indiana and the kicking game has been a positive. And then the field position battle, because you're going to deal with some wind on Saturday that may affect on which way you're going directionally, may have a pretty strong headwind on Saturday afternoon there in Bloomington. So Indiana should be in good shape Saturday against this Wisconsin team based upon the black and white of it. My only concern has been their ability to run the ball against stout fronts, and Wisconsin I consider to be a stout front, and Indiana hasn't done a great job this year against teams that have had stout fronts, only rushing for 113 yards against those type of teams. So this Saturday is going to be a big test for them. Can they get back on track in that arena? Well, I want to thank you for joining me again here on the Hoosier Tailgate here on thehoosier.com. You'll have me back on Saturday, hour and a half before kickoff, 10:30 Saturday morning for Coach Griff's pregame primer. Come join me for that. It'll be on my Twitter page. We'll get you all set and ready for the game in Bloomington Saturday afternoon at noon kickoff. That will be at 10:30. And, of course, join me and Jim Coyle for the Indiana Sports Beat post-game show, where we'll have you covered from everything that's said after the ball game in the presser to our feelings of the game on what was pros, what was negative, and what was it that the Hoosiers did to get a big victory on Senior Day 2025, last game in Memorial Stadium on Saturday. But until then, I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith. You've been watching the Hoosier Tailgate here on thehoosier.com. We'll see you Saturday morning at 10:30 for Coach Griff's pregame primer. Good night, everybody.